This is Good Morning Indiana, working for you.
Overnight, rowdy bar crowds keeping Metro Police busy, where a man was stabbed in the early morning hours and the fights that shut down a popular stretch of nightlife.
Plus, the 103rd running of the Indy 500 was one for the books. A dream come true in a sweep of May in Indy for Simon Pagenaud. What fans thought of the exciting final laps ahead. Thanks for starting your week with us here on Good Morning Indiana. I'm Nicole Griffin.
And I'm Meredith Barrick, meteorologist Todd Clausen here. And Todd, we have some cooler weather today, but storms headed our way later this afternoon.
Yeah, you know, the storm threat is the biggest concern, only because people are going to be out and about here throughout the day today. The storm should be pretty spotty, but temperature-wise, another summer-like feel for us throughout the day today. And as far as the rain chances, it's only about a 20 to 30% chance of some storms flaring up. And you notice it's mainly late this afternoon into the evening, and then maybe some storms could maintain themselves in northern locations into the overnight hours. So when you hear me talk about these storms and Memorial Day, I do not want you to cancel your plans. It's just a very, very spotty chance. That's what 20 to 30% is. It's nothing widespread, but just know that storms are possible. Temperatures right now sit in the 50s and 60s, 64 in Bedford, 65 in Indy. A little cooler to the north with temperatures in the 50s this morning. So we have some high, thin clouds. We are completely dry throughout the morning hours today. There's a cluster of storms off to our west. That's one of the things we'll have to watch to see if it maintains its strength as it approaches Indianapolis. That would be more of a storm threat for the overnight hours, but out ahead of that storm threat, we will have the chance of some isolated storms building in anytime after 2 o'clock, and some of them could be on the strong to maybe severe side with our high temperature well above normal once again today as we top off right around 84 degrees. At 5:02, it's time for another look at the roadways. Here's a look at traffic.
All right, Todd, thank you. Let's take a live look outside right now. This is I-70 west of FedEx heading toward the airport. You can see not too many cars out on the road at this hour, but likely later it will get busier as people leave town after the Memorial Day weekend. Well, breaking overnight, Metro Police dealing with some rowdy crowds out for the long weekend.
That includes a person who was stabbed at a northeast side bar. Just after 2 a.m., officers were called to the Point Restaurant and Lounge near 34th and Arlington. Officials say it was tough to get inside because of such a large crowd. Eventually, a man was found with very minor injuries as a result of the stabbing. No information about a suspect or motive has been released, but officers say they did find drugs at the scene.
And in Broad Ripple, a large fight shut down parts of Broad Ripple Avenue and prompted dozens of police officers to patrol the street. Police at the scene tell us the officers were called out around midnight because of the large crowds that were in the area. Officials say there were several fights and a couple of arrests as well, but so far no specific details about what happened here have been released.
Oh my gosh, I mean, Alexander Rossi had it. Simon came back and took it. Oh my gosh, fantastic finish.
Race day living up to the hype with the 103rd running of the Indy 500 coming down to the final lap.
Simon Pagenaud swept the month of May, crossing the bricks first just weeks after his Grand Prix win. The 35-year-old French driver swapped leads with Alexander Rossi 5 times in the closing laps, but sailed past him on turn 3 during lap 199. Pagenaud says the win is a dream come true. Fans we talked to say while the ending was exciting, the weather was the best part of the day.
When I found out I was pregnant, I was so scared about the weather this year because it's always 100 degrees. And then I was like, oh, it's going to be rainy and cold, and ended up being 80, but it's fine. I'm glad it wasn't 100 degrees, and I made it through the race.
It feels like winning the lottery, but more than that, because this was a dream as a kid.
Today, the celebrations continue. Pagenaud will be back at the track to take the traditional winners' pictures at the Yard of Bricks. Then he'll speak at a winners' press conference. We will have all of that coming up on the news at noon. And for a full look at the sights and sounds from the Indy 500, you can head to theindychannel.com or the RTV6 app. There you'll also find a live blog from IMS, as well as photo galleries from the snake pit, around the track, and along the red carpet. Well, after the race was over, thousands of fans left the track with lots of new memories.
But they also left behind a lot of trash. Our Elena Martella is live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where a massive cleanup will be underway today. Elena.
Yeah, guys, it's going to be a dirty job pun intended, but somebody's got to do it. So let me take a step aside, show you what we're working with here in the snake pit. Take a look at that. It's going to take a lot of manpower to help clean this up, and many of those who do take part are volunteers with local nonprofit organizations. So take a look at this video from last year's cleanup. Undoubtedly, there are beer cans, food wrappers, and more, but crews will also find some hidden treasures. Years past have seen furniture, money, and one of our photographers, Shay Goodpaster, actually tells me one year he even saw a row of porta potties that were burned to a crisp. Last year, a man who volunteered said not only is it about helping out, but it's about togetherness.
Spend some time together as a community with church membership and engage each other, eat some donuts in the morning and have lunch afterwards.
But not only is it done by hand, you can see here there's a trash machine that picks up anything in its path, so that helps to speed up the process a bit. So back to those volunteers. What's kind of cool is that IMS actually donates to those organizations that are involved in the massive cleanup effort. So it's win-win for everyone. For now, I'll send things back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Elena, thank you. Now to some headlines we've been following all weekend. Today's crews will continue to search for a Delphi boy who went missing while swimming in a creek last week. 4-year-old Owen Jones was last seen Thursday before he was reportedly swept down Deer Creek. Drones, boats, and sonar equipment have been used in the search, but officials say high water levels and muddy water have made conditions difficult. This morning, crews are discouraging volunteers from showing up to help search. They say the conditions along the water are not safe and only professionals will keep searching.
State police are asking for your help as they investigate a hit-and-run crash that killed a motorcycle rider over the weekend. Troopers say just after 2 a.m. on Saturday morning, a hit-and-run crash happened along I-70 westbound at mile marker 77. That's near the Holt Road exit. One of the drivers stopped and called 911 and said the other car involved had taken off. While that driver was waiting, 27-year-old Kayla Gullett slammed into the back of the car on her motorcycle. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Troopers say they have little information about the first car involved that fled. If you know anything, give state police a call.
This week, a Muncie man will be back in court facing new charges for a deadly shooting at a house party near Ball State's campus. Right now, 19-year-old Vashon Harnett is facing attempted murder charges. He told police he shot and injured a 20-year-old because of a family fight on May 18th. 7 people were shot in total, and 2 days after the shooting, a 17-year-old died. So far, Harnett has not been charged in the teen's death. He's scheduled to be back before a judge on Wednesday. Prosecutors say more charges are possible in the case. It is 5:08, and today residents across Indianapolis will host ceremonies to remember those who laid down their lives for our country and our freedom.
Memorial Day ceremonies are planned at several central Indiana locations. One service will happen at the Hoosier Patriot Memorial Grounds of Washington Park East Cemetery. Music begins at 9:30 this morning, while the ceremony starts at 10 a.m. Also at 10 a.m., the city of Fishers will honor servicemen and women in a Memorial Day ceremony at Liberty Plaza along the Central Green. And this afternoon, one of the longest running Memorial Day traditions will happen. The 151st annual Memorial Day ceremony gets underway at the Crown Hill National Cemetery at 2 p.m.
Many will use the holiday to hit the pools. Indy Parks has opened 4 pools for the Memorial Day weekend. If you want to swim, you can head to Broad Ripple Park, Ellenberger Park, Northwest Way Park, and Perry Park today. The next wave of Indianapolis City pools will open on June 8th once most schools are out for summer vacation. All right, Todd, going to be a good day to hit the pools?
Yeah, you know, you just got to be a little careful this afternoon and this evening as a few isolated storms will start to roll in here, and some could be borderline strong to severe. But outside of that threat, perfect weather temperature-wise to get out in the pool. It's going to be in the 80s later on this afternoon, 50s and 60s here this morning across the area. And here is the satellite radar picture, and there's nothing going on in Indiana right now, and that's the way it stays probably until at least 2-3 o'clock. And then some isolated storms will start to flare up. This cluster of storms could impact us late tonight into the overnight hours. So as far as today's storm threat, it's only about a 20 to 30% chance. So whether you're heading to the pool, to the lake, to a barbecue, to one of those services such as Crown Hill, you'll be in decent shape here. 81 already by the noon hour, so we warm really quick. Up to 84 for your high. And again, just some isolated storm chances. Know they're possible, but do not cancel your outdoor plans. As far as getting out out in the yard to do some yard work here. Many of you may take care of that today. You're in pretty good shape until those storms arrive today and tomorrow. Then it becomes a little iffier as we head into the week as rain chances increase. We'll talk more about the full week forecast for you coming up in just a few minutes.
Todd, thank you. Still ahead, new details overnight as President Trump continues his visit to Japan. The tough international issues he's hoping to tackle with the help of the Japanese Prime Minister.
Plus, we are in the final days of our countdown to the 70th anniversary of RTV6. This morning, hear from longtime anchor Dionne Willis how what she thought would be a 2-year job turned into more than a decade on air. That's after the break.
Weekdays at 9 on RTV6.
This morning, President Trump and the First Lady are in Japan, continuing their 4-day visit with the Japanese Prime Minister and his wife.
The trip comes as the president deals with issues in the Middle East and new tensions with North Korea. As ABC's Mona Kosar-Abdi is in Washington, D.C. with the big issues facing the two world leaders.
President Trump making history as the first world leader to meet with Japan's new emperor. The Japanese rolling out the red carpet for Trump and First Lady Melania at a welcome ceremony full of pageantry and sumo wrestling.
As sumo grand champion, I hereby award you the United States President's Cup.
That event preceded by a round of golf with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. But the two wasted no time beginning formal talks, addressing matters at the center of the president's state visit.
We are going to discuss various challenges of the international community, including North Korea. Of course, we are going to cover bilateral economic issues between Japan and the United States.
However, despite concerns expressed by Trump's national security advisor John Bolton and Prime Minister Abe about North Korea's recent missile tests, the president tweeted mid-trip that he is confident Chairman Kim will keep his promise to him and that he wasn't bothered by the, quote, small weapons fired off.
I personally think that lots of good things will come with North Korea.
His trip also comes amid trade tensions between the two countries, escalated by threats Trump made earlier this month to raise auto tariffs, calling imported vehicles a threat to national security.
We will talk to Japan about autos. I will say at the same time, since I'm president, many auto companies have announced and have actually built and are building plants in the United States.
Also, while on stage in Tokyo, President Trump called former President Barack Obama's administration a disaster on the economy and the Iran nuclear deal. He also said that he isn't a fan of Joe Biden. Mona Kosar-Abdi, ABC News, Washington.
Time now is 5:15. Hundreds of students are waking up in Washington, D.C. this morning, getting ready to SPELL.
That's easier said than done. It is. The Scripps National Spelling Bee gets underway today. 8 months ago, 11 million spellers started competing for a spot in the bee, but only 565 students made it there. Today, the kids will take preliminary exams. Those test results will help determine who makes it to the final rounds that you see on TV.
And here's a look at this year's contestants from Indiana. The 16 students come from all parts of the state, including some from right here in central Indiana. We'll be keeping in touch with them throughout the week, and we'll bring you updates on their spelling as the competition gets underway. Good luck to those students this week. I had to redeem myself. All right, Todd, let's take a look at our weather for this Memorial Day.
All right, it's another warm day for us. Yesterday was warm. Today, potentially even a little bit warmer across the area with a high of 84 degrees expected for your high temperature. And our normal high is 76 degrees. So we're well above normal today. We'll probably stay there tomorrow before we kind of retreat back closer to that 76 degree number by the end of the week. Outside right now, it's nice and quiet. As we start off your Memorial Day morning and your Monday, temperature sits at 65 degrees right now. Winds are out of the northeast right now at 6 miles per hour. Sunrise officially this morning, 6:22 with sunset now. Not until after 9 o'clock. Look at that, 9:03. So temperatures this morning, not that bad. In fact, we're in the 50s in northern locations. 59 right now in Tipton as well as Lafayette. 65 in Indy. 63 is the current temperature as you work your way down into the Bedford area. And of course, Lake Monroe will probably be a pretty busy place later on this afternoon in between Bloomington and Bedford there with the sunshine and the warm temperatures that'll be in place. So we're already into the mid 70s as we head into the noon hour, and then temperatures eventually this afternoon will top off in the mid to upper 80s. And once we get into the late afternoon, early evening hours, there will be the chance of some storms developing here across the area. And some of the storms, when they do develop, will have the potential to be strong to severe. So we're quiet right now, just some high thin clouds out there, and that is just about it. So a couple things are going to happen. There's going to be a warm front that's going to be stalled right across northern Indiana. And that's going to help to trigger some individual isolated storms throughout the afternoon into the early evening hours. So that's one thing we have to keep an eye on. The second thing is this cluster of storms is expected to make its way into northern portions of the state as we head into the overnight hours. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch with the threat of severe storms here across the area. So let me walk you through it on TrueCast here. Again, any plans, parades, barbecues are just fine throughout at least the early afternoon hours. But once we get to about 4 o'clock and beyond, some isolated storms are going to start to develop here and there across the area. The front should be in northern locations. So if you're heading up to, say, Lake Schaefer, some of the lakes in northern Indiana, certainly that's going to be a bigger concern, I think, compared to, say, some of the lakes Geist in Indianapolis and down towards Lake Monroe, Raccoon Lake off to the west. But certainly this evening, there will be the potential for some strong to severe storms. And then overnight, look at that risk in the far northern portion of the state. So the further north you are, the greater the risk. That's where the Storm Prediction Center has the enhanced risk as you work your way south. It's a slight risk in Indy, just a marginal risk as you work your way down towards Bloomington. So what can we expect? All forms of severe weather will be on the table throughout the overnight hours. I think primarily as we head into the afternoon, it's large hail and damaging wind, but can't rule out that tornado threat in northern locations as we head into the overnight hours. But again, I think you have to get pretty far north in Indiana for that threat to be the greatest. As we work our way into Wednesday and Thursday, some scattered showers cooling off into the 70s, and then the first weekend as we head here into June, temperatures look to be in the upper 70s. Meredith, Nicole?
All right, Todd, thank you. It is almost here, the 70th anniversary of RTV6.
We have so enjoyed taking a look back at the people who've made Channel 6 your source for news since May 30th, 1949. And for nearly 15 years, Clyde Lee and Dion Willis anchored the news together.
But when Dion arrived from Boston in 1987, that was not a commitment she was expecting to make.
When I first came, I really thought 2 years. Really wanted a family, really wanted children very badly. I wanted balance in my life. I didn't have that anchoring and reporting in Boston. I wanted the best of all things. And but I've quickly found what a wonderful city this is. What a kind city, what a compassionate city, what a great city to raise a family. And I fell in love also with this newsroom, with the people here. We made it a family. We did everything we could to create a sense of cohesion and a feeling of belonging and supporting one another through the good times and the bad, through the hard times, through the babies being born and weddings and the other parts of life. And we were there for each other, competitive with the other stations, wanting to do the very best we could, but always there for each other. I baked cookies in, evenings to create that, or to reinforce that, or to remind myself that, yeah, this is my family too.
By the way, for those who haven't been lucky enough to taste Dion's chocolate chip cookies, they say they are legendary. I have not had them.
Dion left Channel 6 in 2001. She and her husband, Clyde Lee, continued to call Indianapolis home. Tonight on the news at 6, a different kind of reporting from Reed Duffy. He wasn't always a restaurant and movie reviewer. The stories he was first hired to cover coming up tonight at 6.
And you can see Dion and Clyde together again on Thursday as they anchor our 1-hour anniversary special, 70 years together, RTV6 working for you. We hope you will be able to join us Thursday night at 7 p.m.
Still ahead, the World War II veteran in his show-stopping national anthem.
His patriotic rendition that did not include any singing, coming up after the break. The U.S. women's national soccer team is now heading to the World Cup undefeated in their last 9 games. The final pre-tournament game was played yesterday against Mexico. They started slow but eventually cruised their way to a 3-0 win. The current world champions now head to France for this year's FIFA World Cup. The tournament starts June 7th. That show-stopping moment came before the U.S. soccer team got their win yesterday. A 96-year-old World War II veteran stealing the spotlight with his harmonica version of the national anthem.
Pete Dupre, who is known as Harmonica Pete, has performed the anthem before, but this was his biggest stage yet. And by the looks of it, not even the size of the crowd could shake his nerves. That sounds amazing.
I have goosebumps right now. There's nothing more Americana than a harmonica. And then the national anthem played by a World War II vet. Wow. Yeah. How lucky for those people to hear that in person.
It's very cool.
Very cool.
Kelly Clarkson did a great job yesterday, too.
Yeah, she did a wonderful job, And, you know, what I like about the 500, too, is not just the race itself, but all the pageantry leading up and the tradition and honoring all the soldiers. And they did a great job with the, I think it's the 38th Infantry from Indiana that's heading out here. They were focused on the broadcast. So, all right, outside right now, we're dealing with temperatures that are currently in the 50s and 60s, up to 84 this afternoon. Some scattered storms, some of which could be strong to severe after 3 o'clock. And then overnight, 87 tomorrow with partly cloudy skies and then cooler conditions with just daily shower threats Wednesday through Friday as we head into the weekend. The time now is 5:27. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Only on RTV6 News.
This is Good Morning Indiana, working for you.
Several large fights keep officers in the Circle City busy overnight.
New this morning where one person was stabbed and rushed to the hospital. Plus, the race is over, but the cleanup is just getting started.
Straight ahead, we're looking at the massive effort to make the track look spick and span once again. Thanks for starting your week with us here on Good Morning Indiana. I'm Nicole Griffin.
And I'm Meredith Barrick. We hope if you're having the day off today, you're enjoying it so far. We do want to get a check of the weather, though, with Todd, because people will be enjoying this day off, Todd.
Yeah, you know, absolutely. And it's a very summer-like day with plenty of an opportunity to get out and about and enjoy the warm temperatures. Just know that later on this afternoon and into the evening hours, though, there will be a storm threat here across central Indiana. Temperatures right now are sitting in the 50s and 60s all across the area. Really nice and comfortable. 59 in Lafayette, 62 in Richmond, 65 in the Circle City, and 63 as you make your way down to Bedford. So there's some high, thin clouds out there right now. We'll burn these off, and it's partly cloudy throughout the morning hours, but once we get into the afternoon, a warm front will continue to lift to the north. That warm front will act as a trigger mechanism for the potential of some isolated storms this afternoon into the early evening hours. Then we'll have to keep an eye on this cluster of storms as we approach the late night and overnight hours with the potential of a second round of severe weather. So be weather aware this afternoon. Again, everything's pretty isolated as far as the storm threat goes, but if you do see them, likely they will be strong to severe outside of that storm threat, which again is until later in the day. Temperatures quickly warm into the 70s by the noon hour and eventually all the way into the low to mid 80s for your afternoon highs. The time now is 5:32. Let's get an update on the roads once again.
All right, let's take a live look outside right now. This is I-65 at 30th Street, where you can see police lights right there on the scene. They're looking like they are responding to some sort of incident right there. Traffic moving slowly around this. So if this is part of your morning commute, make sure to be aware of this as you are traveling through this area. And here's another look right now. This is I-69 at 106th Street up in the Fishers area. Not many cars on the road right now, so if you're heading out the door, should be an easy morning commute for you.
Breaking overnight, one person is recovering after being stabbed at a Northeast Side bar. Police say they were cleaning up a crash near 34th and Arlington when a fight started at the Point. The fight led to the victim being stabbed. He was taken to the hospital with minor injuries. We're told a large crowd inside the bar hindered police from responding how they needed to. There's no information about a suspect or motive yet, but officers do say they did find drugs on the scene.
And in Broad Ripple, a large fight shut down parts of Broad Ripple Avenue and prompted a large police presence. Police at the scene tell us so many officers were called out around midnight because of large crowds that were in the area. We know there were several fights and a couple of arrests as well. This morning, we're working to learn more specific details about the incident. The greatest spectacle in racing living up to its name on Sunday.
Whether you were at the Speedway or watching from home, you got a real treat. A crash involving multiple cars bringing things to a halt with just 20 laps to go. The red flag restart would set up a shootout between 2016 champion Alexander Rossi and pole sitter Simon Pagenaud. It would be a series of passes between Rossi and Pagenaud in the last 13 laps of the race that would keep fans on their feet. Pagenaud inching out Rossi by 0.02 of a second to cross the finish line and earn the honor of kissing the bricks. And here is what the new Indy 500 champ had to say about his duel with Rossi at the end of the race.
When he went by, I was like, it's going to be, what is this? What is this? It's not good. But when he passed me in turn one, I stayed close and I was like, we're good here. We are really good. 4 laps to go. That's perfect timing. And I thought, well, let's just reset. Let's make sure Sato doesn't get by me. Let's get the draft and time it so I get him with two laps to go. And I did just that. Honestly, it went perfectly according to plan, even though it was pure instinct driving.
Pagenaud is also the first pole winner to win the race since Helio Castroneves won back in 2009.
After the race was over, thousands of fans left the track with lots of new memories, but they also left behind a lot of trash. And our Elena Martella is live at the Speedway this morning ahead of a large cleanup effort. Elena, good morning.
Well, good morning, Nicole. Right now, it's the calm after the storm. So take a look at all of this trash behind me in the snake pit right now. So a lot of people are going to volunteer to help spruce this track back up. Many of those who do take part in the efforts are volunteers with local nonprofit organizations. So it's really a win-win for all involved. So IMS gets the track cleaned up. Those organizations get their hands dirty to help the job done, receive a donation from IMS for their charity. Well, years past, there have been church organizations, football and band groups, and more. And there's also a trash pickup machine that helps to speed the process up a tad. But aside from the obvious beer cans and food wrappers, there's bound to be some hidden gems in the garbage and even some surprises. So one of our photographers, Shay Goodpastor, tells me one of the wildest things that he's found were some burned to a crisp porta potties. So I'm sure there's quite the story behind that one. So for all of those crews that are heading out here today, could get pretty interesting. But for now, I'll send things back to you guys in the studio.
Elena, thank you. The search for a man missing on a southern Indiana lake will continue this morning. The man was swimming behind a boat anchored near the Allens Creek State Recreation Area on Lake Monroe when he went missing. Callers told conservation officers they noticed the man went under around 3:30 yesterday afternoon. Scuba teams and crews using sonar equipment will continue their search when the sun rises. We'll be sure to pass along any new information as soon as we learn it.
Search and rescuers in Indianapolis will also continue their efforts to find a missing man in the White River on the west side of town. According to IFD, a couple was in the process of taking a selfie when they noticed a capsized canoe floating behind them in the frame. When they turned around, they saw a man struggling in the fast-moving water who eventually was swept under by the current. First responders have recovered the man's canoe and life jackets just south of the dam, but still no sign of that victim. He has been identified, but the fire department is not releasing his name until they notify his family.
Lawrence police are investigating what could be the city's second homicide of the year. Police were called just after 11:15 Saturday night to a home on Harrison Drive. That's near Franklin Road and Pendleton Pike. Police say a man had been shot in the abdomen. He was rushed to Eskenazi but did not survive. Neighbors told police they heard gunshots, then a vehicle leaving the area, but police do not have a description of that vehicle or a suspect.
RTV6 is getting answers for a Greenwood homeowner who's fed up with a cable line that runs through her yard. Stephanie Coe says the orange cable snakes through her yard and extends hundreds of feet, connecting to another neighborhood. She says the cable has been exposed on the ground for several months, and she's called several times to get information.
I called for 2 straight weeks trying to get somebody to come out here, and they just kept telling.
After RTV6, we are obviously experiencing some technical difficulties here. All right. We're going to take a turn now, and we want to get to some news about criminals trying to target a Navy veteran with a common phone scam. Instead of giving them information, he did this.
So you hung up the phone and you contacted Call 6 Investigates.
Yes, I did.
Scammers are stealing phone numbers of local businesses to try to trick you into answering the phone. It's called neighbor spoofing. Richard Rosado saw St. Francis Vet calling, so he thought it was a local business. Instead, the caller tried to get his personal information, posing it as a credit card consolidation service. The number actually belongs to St. Francis Vet Hospital in Canby. The business is also a victim of this neighbor spoofing scam.
Can you see how people will fall for this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if, you know, I could have easily fallen for it. If I had any kind of card debt or anything, you know, credit card, you know, I might want to be interested in it, you know, and find out. But, no, I wasn't going to take the bait.
You can protect yourself by asking your phone company what technology they offer to address neighbor spoofing. Also, don't answer the call. If it is a legitimate business, you can always call them back.
Summer in Brownsburg starting off on a bad note. Employees with the Parks and Recreation Department discovered vandalism at the city's splash pad. Officials say someone left behind what they're calling inappropriate piece of artwork. They're hoping, though, that because the facility has security cameras, they'll be able to catch the suspects quickly. And Todd, another warm day ahead, but you said we need to be aware of some storms later today.
Yeah, and that's why it's a Storm Team 6 alert day. Obviously, a lot of people off from work today, a lot of people doing outdoor activities on this Memorial Day, and there will be the potential for some strong to maybe severe storms as we go throughout, mainly the afternoon and evening hours and even into the overnight hours. So what's going to set it up is these warm temperatures. Our normal high is 76 degrees. We're going into the low 80s in northern locations, and to the north, as I'll show you in just a second, this is where we have the best storm threat. The further south you go, your storm threat decreases. 85 today in Bedford, 84 in Bloomington, in and around the metro area. High temperatures will range from 84 in Indianapolis and Franklin to about 82 degrees as you make your way up into the Zionsville area. So the Storm Prediction Center has a good chunk of the northern third of Indiana from Lafayette to Muncie under the enhanced risk for severe weather. Then the threat drops off pretty quickly to slight risk just north of Indianapolis, and it's just a marginal risk down to the south. All forms of severe weather will be on the table here: wind, hail, and the potential for even a few isolated tornadoes. Now, I do think the tornado threat is probably right along the state line with Michigan. The further north you go, the timing 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. There's two waves that come through. First, some isolated storms, and then a big cluster of storms. So a great tool to have. We mention it all the time. It's free for you to download. Just look for this emblem in the Storm Shield app. It's basically a weather radio on your phone. You customize it to your location. It'll alert you to any warnings. And at the track, I was using the interactive radar all the time to track some of those storms as they approached. So certainly download this so you're prepared. I'll talk more about the storm chances for you coming up in just a few minutes.
Todd, thank you. Cleanup continues in Oklahoma following devastating storms over the weekend. Straight ahead, the latest on the severe weather outbreak that continues to hit the plains at this hour.
Plus, crews in Utah are searching for a missing 5-year-old this morning. What investigators are saying about their lead suspect.
And it is 5:41 right now. We are taking a look at I-465 at State Road 37 Harding Street. You can see traffic picking up a bit out there, but you shouldn't expect much traffic as it is Memorial Day. Many people having the day off. We'll be right back after this break.
Utah police are still searching for a 5-year-old girl who disappeared from her family home over the weekend. Elizabeth Shelley was last seen by her mom at 2 a.m. Saturday. Police are calling the girl's uncle, 21-year-old Alex Whipple, the primary suspect. He was arrested for a probation violation and is being held on $25,000 bond. Elizabeth was not with him when he was arrested. Whipple isn't cooperating with investigators. A police captain told CNN the case is, quote, not going to end well. The FBI is also working the case.
Volunteers who helped find missing hiker Amanda Eller will be celebrated this afternoon in Maui. Eller spent more than 2 weeks lost in a thick Hawaiian forest. She survived on berries, fruit, and river water. A rescue team and a helicopter spotted her Friday, sunburned and smiling. The 35-year-old yoga instructor was just discharged from the hospital where she was treated for a broken leg and skin infection. Eller, who lost 15 pounds during the ordeal, said she had to choose between life and death. And she says, quote, "I chose life."
At least 177 twisters have hit Oklahoma in the past week, including a powerful EF3 that touched down in El Reno over the weekend.
As ABC's Kenneth Moten reports, officials say this cyclone killed at least 2 people, bringing the death toll from the storms to 6.
4 minutes of terror in Oklahoma.
Bodies everywhere, people everywhere, don't know dead or alive.
An EF3 tornado tearing through El Reno, a small town just outside of Oklahoma City.
My ex-wife called and said that the tornado just took her house out and that the kids were still inside.
145-mile-per-hour winds annihilated everything in their path. The second floor of this hotel sheared off, and a nearby trailer park decimated.
Yeah, we heard screaming and stuff, children and adults both.
You could hear them, but we couldn't get to them.
There's no way for us to get out, so our neighbor had to punch a hole in the wall for us to get out.
This boy was trapped in the rubble after his home was flipped by the powerful winds.
I was in a chair at the time, and I fell back in it, and when we got up, the whole house was overturned.
In the aftermath, at least 2 dead and dozens of others injured. Witnesses described the scene as rescuers combed through piles of debris in search of survivors.
A lot of destruction, a lot of chaos,
I saw a lot
of death.
Officials say people in the path of the powerful twister didn't have time to take cover. The warning issued just minutes before the tornado touched down.
It looked to be just like a regular Oklahoma thunderstorm, and all of a sudden it hit, and next thing you know, they were talking about debris in the air.
The entire state of Oklahoma is now in a state of emergency as another storm threatens to bring more tornadoes and destructive winds. Kenneth Moten, ABC News, New York.
And we, too, will have the potential for some strong to severe storms as we head into the afternoon hours. That's why it's a Storm Team 6 alert day. Now, no rain out there this morning, but we do have some reduced visibility in spots. The visibility in Lafayette down to just a half a mile. Everybody else is basically okay. A little reduced visibility over towards the Anderson area. So just give yourself a little bit of extra time. But here's the view this morning as you look from downtown to the north, and kind of a mixed bag. We have some sunshine. We have some clouds out there. These are just some thin clouds, though, and as that sun gets higher in the sky, it'll start to burn off those clouds, and we have a very summer-like day in store for us all across the area with almost a little bit of everything. Some sunshine, some warmth, some humidity, and then those chance of storms as well. 65, that's the current temperature right now in Indianapolis. A little bit cooler to the north, 58 in Peru, 59 in Tipton. Bloomington, you're at 62 degrees currently, as is Richmond. So on this Memorial Day, we'll see our temperatures climb quickly up into the 70s throughout the morning hours. By 1 p.m., we're at about 78 degrees. We should be completely dry throughout the early afternoon hours. Great for your barbecues. It's once we get to about 3, 4 o'clock and beyond that we start to run into some issues here with some isolated storms that are first going to flare up across the area. So let me walk you through this storm threat, because I know a lot of you have outdoor plans throughout the day today, including maybe some barbecues, heading off to a lake, to a pool, or to some of our services here and parades for Memorial Day. So everything's quiet right now with just the clouds moving through, and again, those will thin as well. But there's a cluster of storms off to our west. That's something we have to keep an eye on for probably after sunset tonight and then into the overnight hours. But we also have this warm front that is across southern Indiana right now, and that's going to lift to the north. And I feel like I've been talking about fronts moving through for over a week now, and it's been basically the case as this front's just been kind of toggling back and forth across Indiana, and it's that front that triggers some of these storms. As we go throughout the afternoon hours, watch how some of them start to pop up across the area, but they're going to be very, very isolated. So that's why if you do have plans, I keep saying don't cancel them, but just be weather aware, right? You just have to know that there is the potential. If you hear the thunder, you see some lightning, you have the rain, you have to come in off the lake, or you have to just go inside for your barbecue for just a little while. So that's the initial threat as the warm front moves through. And then the cluster of storms starts to come through, and I'm a little more concerned about this cluster of storms and the potential for severe weather than those isolated storms. Again, the further north you are here throughout the evening hours, and then overnight the threat is across northern Indiana, but it could clip Monticello, Peru, and some areas over in that neck of the woods. So certainly need to be weather aware as we head into the afternoon and evening hours. Lafayette to Muncie points to the north, an enhanced risk of severe weather from the Storm Prediction Center. Notice how that threat quickly drops off down to the south. Probably not too much of a threat from Bloomington over towards Seymour, but certainly any form of severe weather is going to be on the table. First, initially wind and hail, and then the tornado threat. It's not low. It's kind of maybe say medium threat with that cluster of storms that comes through. So something we'll have to keep an eye on later on this afternoon, but more so this evening and then overnight. Cooler weather arrives as we head into the end of the week. The one common theme, though, with the exception of tomorrow, which is partly cloudy at 87, is showers and storms stay in the forecast.
All right, Todd, thank you. We're going to take one quick look at traffic right now. This is I-70 at the North Split. You can see a bit of traffic out there, but we have no issues to report right now, and we will be right back after this break.
Liberty, liberty, liberty.
Before you head out the door, it's time for the Trending 6.
These are some of the stories that everyone is sharing online and you'll want to know about.
A World War II veteran celebrates his 100th birthday in style with a ride in a B-17 bomber. Max Anderson took to the skies above Lebanon, Tennessee in one of only 15 B-17s still flying today. Anderson says the purr of the engine seemed only natural for his big birthday. He and his wife will be honored in a parade later today.
A standout student in Atlanta, Georgia just made history. 14-year-old Sydney Wilson is the youngest student ever to be accepted into Spelman College. Wilson says she was teased when she started taking high school classes at age 10. Her hard work paid off when Spelman officials notified Wilson's dad of her acceptance. Wilson says she wants to work with animals and plans on being a biology major.
Burger King wants to help you pay off your college debt. It works like this. You order food using the restaurant's app, and when you check out, it'll ask how much you owe, and you're entered into a contest. Burger King is giving away 300 prizes each, paying $500 worth of student loans for the winners. There's also one grand prize that pays up to $100,000 for a single winner.
A Florida high school student showing his classmates that hard work does pay off. Nearly a year ago, Colton Smith was paralyzed in a car accident, but that did not stop him from walking across the stage at his high school graduation. Colton says he's been working on his goal for months. The teen says he was so focused on walking, he didn't notice the standing ovation his classmates were giving him.
Always love those stories, so inspiring. An exciting and ancient find in the Denver area. Dinosaur fossils were uncovered at a construction site near a retirement community in Highlands Ranch last week. A limb bone and several ribs from a horned dinosaur were the first fossils discovered at the site. Work will continue this week to determine the size of the bone bed. A museum spokesperson says finds like this show how dynamic our planet is.
Residents in a Georgia neighborhood showing their retiring mailman the love and appreciation he deserves on his last day on the route. 61-year-old Floyd Martin served the neighborhood for nearly 35 years. Neighbors decorated their mailboxes, bought food, gave him gifts, and even posed for photos. The neighbors also started a GoFundMe campaign to send him on a trip to Hawaii. They must have really liked him.
Yeah. Hey, man, a good mailman is hard to come by sometimes.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's such an awesome story. So hopefully he gets that trip. That's the Hawaiian Islands. All right, temperatures in the 60s this morning. Radar is quiet. That is good news. Radar is quiet through about 2, 3 o'clock. After that, we will see some storms start to flare up. So if you do have Memorial Day plans here, certainly keep an eye on the weather. Some of the storms that do flare up will have the potential to be strong to severe. Outside of that, we'll have a temperature up to 84 degrees. I'll talk more about the storm threat first this afternoon and this evening, and then it continues into the overnight hours coming up in the next half hour of Good Morning Indiana. The time now is 5:57. Stay with us. We'll be right back.